All right, here we go. A couple of questions I hear over and over and over again are number one, how hard of a reed should I be playing? And number two, how do I know when I should change my reed? I'm going to answer both those questions for you. Bear with me, going to take a bit of a minute here because there's a lot that goes on with reeds. But first, my name is Dave. I teach people how to play the saxophone. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Glad to have you along here today. And this month, I'm going to, in fact, this month and next month, let's just do it for the next couple of months. I'm going to offer 50% off my one-on-one consultation price. I'm going to give you all of you in the YouTube family, 50% off. Why am I going to do that? Because I want it to be affordable. In this weird age of tariffs and nonsense that's going on, I want time with me to be affordable to you because many of you have been writing in with questions that are too complicated to answer in a return text or in the comments section. So down below, I'm going to give you a link that'll get you to me. Tell me what you want to work on. And again, I'm going to give you 50% off for the next couple of months. Okay, let's make this happen. All right, so the easier of the two questions, one, how hard of a reed should I be playing? And two, when do I know to change it, is number two. That's the easiest question of all to answer. So why don't we start with that one? When should I change my reed? All right. You should change your reed when it stops performing. What the heck do I mean by that? Well, if you're playing in your practice room and you never leave your practice room, you're probably not going to hear the changes that you might hear if you were playing, say, in a community big band, right? Or a community concert band, or showing up at the Sunday Blues Jam and really shouting, really putting some air through your horn, all right? You're sitting in your room and you're really not blasting, your reed's probably not going to sound a lot different to you until it really gets drastically worn out. The reed buzzes. This is the buzzer here, and the reed is the one moving part. This thing buzzes like a butterfly wing, I've been told, and it does a lot of work. It gets wet, it dries out, gets wet, it dries out, goes in your mouth. Sometimes it tacos up when it dries and you have to revive it, you have to save it, and sometimes there are those among you who will put a 2.5 reed on at the beginning of summer, and by fall you're still playing that same reed, all right? When you change that reed and you put another 2.5 on because you finally get around to ordering some new reeds, we've all been there, then that 2.5 plays like a 3, and you're going like, oh my God. We'll talk about how to avoid that problem toward the end of this. So you want to change the reed when it stops performing. Now, what does that mean? Well, it's going to sound thinner. Your tone is not going to be as big and as vivid and as bright. Your volume is probably going to fall off a little bit. And the high end of your horn, they're talking about the palm keys up here, they may not sound as thick as you would like to have them sound, okay? How long should a reed last? It depends on how much you play it and how well you take care of it, okay? Those are two things that are up to you. And I'm not going to talk about that in this lesson because I already got a lot of stuff to go over, all right? But again, when I put a new reed on, I don't play it for more than an hour. That's about it. When I take a selection of reeds to a gig, they're unknown commodities to me, and I will play each one for an hour. That's all I put on a reed, right? I sort of spread the love around that way, okay? So that's just me, and I'm sure there are many other opinions here on the tube about when you should change your reed, but you will hear a difference in the reed, and it may even start to close up on you. What happens? Well, with all of that flex that the reed does, it becomes a little bit, I don't know how to say, just less stiff. Okay, that's scientific. Yeah, it just becomes less stiff over time, and it just doesn't give you the performance of a reed fresh out of the box is going to give you. Okay, all right. There you go. Now, number one, the big one is how hard of a reed should I use? All right, let's little backstory. Reed strength or hardness is indicated to us, is measured, and it's indicated to us in numbers from 1 to 5. 1 being the lowest, and 5 being the hardest. I've never heard of a reed harder than a number 5, and I've never heard of anything less than a number 1. Okay. And these are measures of flexibility. A number 1 reed then is a very flexible reed. A number 5 reed can be kind of like a popsicle stick, depending. I've played a 5 reed once, and I saw Tweety birds. I did. I saw a little, and I had to go outside and suck in some oxygen. I don't play a 5 reed. The biggest reed I've ever played is a 4. I don't do that anymore either. 2.5 seems to work for me, but we'll get to that, okay? 5 is a stiff reed. Number 1 is a very flexible reed. The number 1 reed is going to take a lot less effort to make sound with. A number 5 is going to take a lot more effort to make sound with, okay? All right. So the smaller the number, the less effort it takes to produce tone. Now this works in conjunction with the tip size opening. I'm going to add a focus on it. All right, let me see if I can get that in focus. The tip size opening on your mouthpiece, all right? And that's a whole different program there, okay? So I'm going to assume that those of you who are watching are working in your 4, 5, 6, somewhere in that range, maybe nothing bigger than a 7 tip opening. All mouthpieces are rated. The opening, the gap between the reed and the mouthpiece is technically called the tip opening, okay? That's your mouthpiece. That's the buzzer. That's the whole thing. This is 90% of it all right here. This makes the buzz. The rest of this amplifies it and somehow modifies it and turns it into tone, and that goes on again. That's another science lecture for another day. All right, so what kind of a reed should you be playing? Great question. How hard of a reed? Where are you at in your journey as a sax player? All right, are you just starting out? Then let's look at some smaller, some thinner reeds. All right, a 1 is that's a pretty thin reed, and that in and of itself might give you a little trouble. 2 is probably a good starting place, like a 2 reed, not a bad place to start. All right, now for today's purposes, I'm talking cane reeds here. I'm not talking about any of the wonderful synthetic reeds that are on the market, and there are many of them. I mean, many synthetic reeds, and many of you watching today play the synthetic reeds, and they produce a beautiful sound. They start up, they're reliable, they don't taco up, they don't dry out. And I have used plastic cover reeds for years, right? Plastic cover is like a synthetic reed, but it's basically a cane reed, right? Made out of wood that's got a little thin plastic covering that's sprayed over it so it doesn't absorb moisture, all right? The next thing is that I want to talk about is that there's no government overseer that dictates that all reeds be equal. In other words, a Van Doren Blue Box and a Hemke Blue Box, a Rigotti Gold Blue Box, their 2.5s might be different, okay? And that happens across the spectrum of all the reeds. Today, I've been playing saxophone since I was 11, and today we have more reeds, more flavors of reeds, more makers, it's astounding. This is the golden time of saxophone reeds. Okay. Now, there's one other thing I want to talk to you about. There's abundant mythology about who played what kind of a reed and blah blah blah. There are endless chat rooms full of information, and they will swear to you that they know that Cannonball Adderley played an XXX and that Grover Washington played an XXX, whatever. I've heard that Grover Washington blew a 5, Cannonball Adderley blew a 2 or a 3, something like that. I can't vouch for any of that. I never talked to those guys. I didn't meet those guys, and I don't know if any of that stuff on those chat rooms is true. So I have no idea. And then there's another little bit of mythology kind of connected to, the forbearance of mythology that the better sax player you are, the bigger reed that you should have. You should be playing a stiffer reed as you get better as a sax player. And let's throw that one out the window too. I recently watched an interview with an amazing jazz sax player, Vincent Herring. And he's playing a very small reed on a very small tip opening, and he gets a very, very big sound. Now, he worked at that. He made that happen. That's not going to happen if you just put that together. It's not going to sound like he sounds, okay? It's something that we'll talk about a little bit as we progress here through the lesson today. But another all roads almost always lead back to high school, right? And back when you had you were in high school band, you were in marching band or concert band, you may have had a teacher. Your concert master may have said, you all need to get thicker reeds. You all need to put threes on those clarinets and threes on those alto, whatever it is. And think about that for a minute. Now, outside and in concert halls, you're trying to fill a big space with an acoustic instrument. We're not mic'd at that point, right? And the bigger the reed, the better the sound. A bit of a louder sound, bigger projection, within the range that most pieces of material are written, right? And it's also going to last a little bit longer. Stiffer reed going to last a little bit longer. And, it's a bummer when the high school, you had to go to your teacher and say, hey, man, I can't play. I got to sit out today because I busted my reed. When I was in high school, I played baritone sax in the jazz band. It was a big band. I qualified on the bari sax. I was not a solo chair. I was the bari sax. I was a fifth reed. And I kind of dug it, but I was cheap. And I think I made 3 years work on one baritone sax reed. Should have had it bronzed, right? But I didn't. All right. So let's get rid of all the old school thing about, you should be working your way up to a bigger reed. This is not a weightlifting class. You should be playing a reed that gives you everything that you want. When you sit down and play the music that you like to play, you're able to articulate, you're able to produce tone, you're not giving yourself a hernia trying to play your saxophone. All right, let's think about that. And again, you may want to start out on a thinner reed. If you're just beginning, if you're in your first 6 months here, you may want to start out on a 2. Again, a 1.5 perhaps, a 2, but we can move you up, or your teacher can move you up as you make progress on that reed, okay? But you don't have to go all the way up to a 9 tip opening and a 5 reed or a 4 reed or whatever. Bob Reynolds and George Garzone are two contemporary sax players who come to mind to get beautiful tone from big tip opening mouthpieces and very stiff reeds, all right? That works for them, right? So the bottom line is here, we're going to work on what works for you, all right? And that means you're going to try some reeds out. But, I thought I would give you a little demonstration today and show you what happens when you go up and reed straight. Just bear with me here because I've got some reeds soaking over here in a cup. And you should too, by the way. You should do your reeds in water, soak them in water, because the whole reed gets wet at that point, right? The entire reed gets wet, and it works a hell of a lot better than just licking the top of it. Now you say, well, Dave, I got to go to a gig or I got to go play somewhere, and I don't necessarily have a cup of water to take with me. Well, what I do is I soak all my reeds that I'm going to take, 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever it is, and I put them in their little reed holders, and I put them in a plastic bag because I'm too cheap to buy one of those reed carriers. But there are some awesome reed carriers out there as well, some reed holders that are pretty cool. So let's get back to work here. All right, Conn 6M, same alto as last time, and Meyer 5 medium, and I think I've got a 2.5 on here, which is my normal go-to reed. Okay, so I'm going to play a scale, a concert F scale. And I will play this scale, and I want to play the concert F scale because it'll take me from the basement all the way up to the palm key, and you'll be able to hear the tone. Here we go. So I like it because I'm pretty good in the bottom end of the horn. The D pops right out. Both Ds, in fact. All 3 Ds popped right out. I'm able to play in tune. I feel good about it. I'm able to project a good deal when I'm playing a gig. Last night, for example, and if you're, let's see, let me get the 3 here. If you're ever in my neck of the woods here in La Mesa, California, stop by. I got a jam every Wednesday night in La Mesa, and I would be happy to seat you and have you play a little bit with us. All right, now so I'm going to change reeds. I'm going to put a 3 on. I want you to hear the difference. And, a 2.5 to 3 does not sound like that big of a bump mathematically, does it? But it makes a world of difference to your playing. And you're going to, you just hang on there. Here we go. Let's get this lined up. And we'll stick there to goodbye. There we go. 1, 2, 3. All right. Tighten that up. I'm looking pretty good here. All right, here goes our number 3. We went from a 2.5 to a 3. Same scale, F concert. Now, did you hear the start? It took a little longer for the note to establish, right? Oh, that was gorgeous. So the bottom of the horn starts to become a little bit more difficult as we go up in reed strength, right? We give that up, but the top of the horn sounded pretty darn good, and it sang out, didn't it? That was a little bit of a chromatic. I know, a little too flashy, wasn't it? All right, sorry. I'm showing off. I'm sorry. All right, now let's put the 3.5 on. And I want you to notice what happens when I go to the 3.5. Where's it at? It's soaking in water, so it will not bend or break. 3.5. All right, here we go. 3.5. Again, it doesn't feel like we've gone, to great lengths mathematically, from a 2.5 to a 3 to a 3.5. But didn't that make a difference in the sound? You heard that, didn't you? Okay, and I hope I'm able to demonstrate this for you and save you a little money at the same time. Mander reeds cost a little bit these days, okay? And I think it has nothing to do with the tariffs. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into making a good reed. Okay, 3.5, same concert F. Hear how the bottom now sounds like it's got a little hair growing on it. Those notes are fuzzy, aren't they? And you see me working a little bit harder to make that 3.5 reed, right? Work a little bit better and sound good too, right? All right, listen, that's all I've got for today, and I hope this helps you to figure out how hard of a reed should you be playing and when should you change it. I'm trying to take my sound. There we go. All right. And I really hope this helped. If you have any questions, I get right back to you. So leave them in the comments below. Leave them or you can reach out to me. Again, 50% off individual consultations, okay? Works just like a lesson. We hook up on Zoom. And I'm going to give you that discount because I want to be able to answer your questions and talk to you one-on-one and get this stuff worked out rather than just, rip off a little text and send it to you, okay? So circle back. Again, grateful to have you here along for the ride. Thank you so much. Subscribe if you're not. Like it if you do. And I will see you here again next week. All right. Take good care. Be good to each other. Play some beautiful music.